The dramatic and very frightening visuals of the landslide in Kerala's Wayanad brought back memories of the similar landslide in 2024 and earlier, especially 2 years ago when about 300 lives were lost in a similar landslide. I have with me C.K. Vishnudas, who is the director of Hume Centre for Ecology and Wildlife Biology, who brings deep scientific knowledge as well as hyperlocal environmental data because his institute has studied that area specifically, the soil saturation and other predictive studies. And I also have K. Shaji, very senior journalist who has not just done political and social reporting, but a lot of environmental reporting and agri rural reporting as well. Thank you so much for joining us on DeKoder. First of all, soon after that disaster has happened, of course, the focus was on rescue, and that is still going on. Uh, the state chief minister V.D. Satishan as well as agriculture minister Mr. Siddiq, who's from the area Wayanad, both of them have said this is a man-made disaster. They are saying that huge mounds of earth that were excavated were asked to be removed on the 20th of June, whereas the construction company, the contractor, seems to suggest that 265 of rain in 24 hours is something that would have necessarily brought this kind of a mudslide or a disaster. First, you, Mr. Vishnudas, do you see this as man-made or is this a natural disaster?
This is a completely a kind of man-made disaster, because if you're looking at the rainfall pattern in Wayanad for the last 30 days, this is an El Nino year. So the whole of Southeast Asia has been experiencing less rainfall, and Kerala as a state has recorded deficit rainfall for the month of June. And Wayanad is the most deficit rainfall deficit districts in Kerala till end of June. So basically, we received 50 to 55% less rainfall compared to previous years. So that is the statistics. Then come to the rainfall pattern in July. So already we received a less rainfall, and we got only 200 millimeter rainfall on the mudslip day on that particular location. So usually in a deficit situation, if you receive a 200 millimeter rainfall, that will not cause any kind of natural damage in any of these mountain tops. That's for sure. So that's the data shows about. We have been monitoring rainfall in the mountain slopes for the last 10 years. So we have data from coming. So it all these mountain slopes can absorb water up to 1,800 millimeters and 2,000 millimeters. And after that particular saturation level, if you receive another 200 millimeters or 300 millimeters within 24 or 48 hours, then we have to be at risk. So in this case, that kind of a situation has not emerged. So what happened in this particular case is that, so we have altered a portion of the mountain by creating an entrance for a tunnel. And what we have done, say, we cut the slopes and made into some terraces and use the concrete structure to mildly plaster it just to protect so the soil doesn't run off. What happened when you receive some 100 millimeter or 200 millimeter rainfall in a day? So water from this nearby rocky patches has run into the this particular point, and it got stagnated in that and pushed the soil and concrete part downwards, and already there are a lot of soil has been deposited by digging the tunnel part. So everything is deposited there only. So everything pushed down, because if you receive a 200 millimeter or 200 millimeter means that is over a 24 hours time. So we have automated gauges in that area that shows like a maximum, the highest volume of rainfall that received in that particular day is about 30 or 35 millimeters in a 1 hour period of time. That cannot cause any kind of natural damage. So basically, it's a failure of infrastructure management and the kind of constructions and the design and those kind of things. That's what we wrongly believe in that, based on our site-specific data and about the information that we received from them.
Mr. Shaji, the chief minister has specifically said that we issued this warning on the 20th of June. Uh, does that absolve the state government of all responsibility? Because if it is not being done by the contractor, it would the state government obviously cannot wait for a happening like this before they once again, the blame game starts.
Before coming to your question, I have to add one thing. Today, the Chief Minister visited the incident area, and he also held a press meeting, and he given a clear kind of announcement. A thorough probe would be conducted into the all aspects, into the whole issue, and also the government said till the coming up of the comprehensive kind of investigation report, No construction activity, nothing would be permitted in that area. The status quo would be maintained. And I welcome that decision. That is at one level. And another level, you see, as Vishnudas clearly knows, the rain patterns in Kerala. And this year, rains were comparatively less, about 40-45% deficit. There was in the case of the rain this year. But what happened? Normally, Kerala is doing all monsoon related preparatory works by the end of May. This district collector's order to remove the debris was issued on 20th of June. So, a small kind of rain, at least 200 millimeter, that happened on 21st of June. What would have happened? About 40-45 trucks were taking debris from that area. More than 3,000 people were employed in that area. The calamity would be very severe. That is the backdrop. Then the new government was kept totally under darkness in the case of this development project. As far as my knowledge, I saw some of the government documents last day. In 2024, on June 6th of 2024, the Chief Secretary of Kerala he held a meeting of the Kerala Disaster Management Authority, and in that meeting, he told the authority neither the Kerala State Disaster Management Authority nor the district level disaster management authority they have nothing to do with this tunnel project. He said the tunnel project can be handled, its environmental issues, its hazard issues that must be addressed by the Union Ministry of Environment and Forest. The former Chief Secretary Jayadilek said, it is available in public domain. And that time the Kongan Railway Corporation, the supposed implement agency, approached the Disaster Management Authority of Kerala, asking is to point out if there is a risk factor, if there is any hazards, any possible precautions the authority has to take. Then the state government, the chief secretary, told the authority that it is not your duty. Actually, there was another government order that was issued in 2023. At that time, the chief secretary was Mr. Dr. Velu. And it clearly says whatever be the big infrastructure project across Kerala, there must be proper studies by the district and state level disaster management authorities. Because there must be, because for each and every large scale project, the agency must study the rain availability in that area, the nature of the rain, the risk factors, the wind flowing pattern. All these issues must be considered. But in this particular case, we believe there were some vested interest on the part of the then state government and also the then chief secretary. That is why they came out with such a strange kind of theory. So nowadays, because of the enforcement of this prevailing order by the then Chief Secretary Jayadilek, the state agencies were not going through the details of the real ground situation. And at another level, what was happening was there was an agency called KIFBI in Kerala that is handling all the high level, large scale investment related these big infrastructure projects. So KIFBI was directly dealing with Kongan Railway Corporation, and Kongan Railway Corporation doing nothing directly. It is involving many subcontractors to implement this project. And in the case of the particular debris removal, the task is entrusted with a Madhya Pradesh based organization. So there was a clear lack of coordination, the lack of clarity, there was a procedural kind of lapse. So the issues are multiple. It is not very simple. And Kerala Public Works Department clearly said they were totally kept in the dark about the developments there. The Public Development Minister, Public Works Minister, and also the PWD Secretary, they clearly said they had no role, they had no responsibility, and by chance they came to know about the dangerous situation there, and that is why they insisted the district collector to issue such a order. So that is a larger picture.
So you're making a very serious point there, saying that the Kerala state government, the top bureaucrat there, actually said that the state government, the Environment Impact Assessment Authority, all of them need not take any responsibility. Presumably, the center would have sought a report from the district authorities or the state government about the environmental vulnerability or whatever the situation on the ground, isn't it? Before the
Yeah,
approvals are given.
because for the last 6 years, we have been talking, we have been discussing about this controversial project. And right from the beginning, we, the environmental journalists, experts like Vishnudas, many people are pointing out that this project, this controversial tunnel road, is passing through the same area which witnessed frequent landslides, the totally unstable hill region. And there were many anxieties because it is passing through a elephant corridor area. There were several burning issues related to environment. Disregarding all these, the then government went with the project, and even in the case of assessing the environmental impact, they created a committee. Ironically, one of the member was an aquaculturist. He had nothing to do with the mountain areas, engineering, or environmental issues. And another one was a historian. Fortunately, they acknowledged the anxieties raised by the concerned people and they given a good report. That is a different issue. But that itself showing the way the government handled everything. So it is a man-made disaster, as you mentioned at the beginning. It was the culmination of a large-scale neglect and large-scale disregard for the safety of the people and safety of the environment.
This project itself, the twin tunnel itself, wasn't it meant to be? I mean, obviously, it is meant to reduce the travel time between a Kozhikode and and Wayanad, where otherwise, roads are not available, railway station is not available. You can't fly in directly to a Wayanad, and therefore, this was supposed to be a solution that itself has become a problem, Mr. Vishnudas.
Yeah, actually, that's a larger question of connectivity to Wayanad. Wayanad has been connected by almost 4 5 roads right now into different parts, either to Mysore, Nilambur, Calicut through Lakdi, Calicut through Kutyadi Pass, Kannur through 2 roads. One is through the Boys Town, another through Peria. So these are all, since British time, there were 2 3 roads, and later on there were 2 more roads added. And connectivity, when you look for, yeah, one is for OT, there are two more into the OT, and it's all connected. The problem is the kind of the magnitude of transportation that comes part of the tourism activity. When there is a peak hours or peak season of tourism that comes, a lot of people come into Wayanad and go back. So there's an issue. But the problem is, like, if we want to solve a particular transportation issue or connectivity issue, we have to look at, so which are the most least impactful area in which, through which we can improve our connectivity. There are multiple options in available mine. For example, the Kutyadi passes, like, if you're really looking for a tunnel to have through that, there's a possibility that could have been done when we have 500 or 1000 meters tunnel. You can put there and go with the pillars and things like that. It is already in the pipeline of the central government that it's going to be widened. Another project is like existing road Lakdi to Kalpata, Lakdi through Lakdi is can be widened a little bit more, like that was done in the Nadugani pass that is connecting again Wayanad through Tamil Nadu and to the Nilambur side. It's been widened by the state government a couple of years back with a good facility of transportation facilities. Or if you want to add an additional route, you can still look at which is the most suitable place in the whole Ghats section where you can do this. But here in this case, like, one Sunday morning, there's a tunnel project coming in one particular area, and it is through the one of the most vulnerable, highly susceptible location, and it's not by reflected by us, but many other geologists in the country, especially Professor C.P. Rajendran and many other people have visited the location. Has been today also there was an article in Madhurumi came out about the kind of, not done any studies, but the people started digging the tunnel and all that. So it was like where we should have those kind of mega project, and we should really discuss it in public domain, which is the most suitable location to have a connectivity, to solve the connectivity issue. That should be the strategy for a progressive state, rather than looking at one corner and making this very long tunnel. It has a lot of ecological, environmental, geological, climatic factors. For example, these mountain range attract the cumulonimbus clouds every year since 2018, and we are having extremely heavy rainfall. If you're looking at landslides in 1984, the same Mundakai region has a heavy, severe landslide. About 11 people died at that time. In 2020, there was a major landslide in the Mundakai exact location where we had 2024 rainfall, major landslide. There was no casualty at that time. A second landslide has happened in 2024 that actually taken away the entire community into the valleys. And 2019, there was a landslide like happened in Puttumala, which is just close to the current location. Now we have the Kaladi, which is because we can alter the terrain. That's what happening. But looking at the history of this particular geography, we should not have attempted this particular project in this area. That's my opinion. We should have there are many other possible sites, but those areas have not been studied by any kind of expert group at that time. So that is where we made a mistake. So we have to really assess the vulnerability of the landscape first when you talk about the connectivity issue. So that's a different question, but we have to be very careful about that, not to bring, because suppose in monsoon season, how many people will be able to travel through this area, which is highly susceptible to landslide again? Reaching into the tunnel entrance itself will be a problem in sometimes. So basically, we are looking at connectivity throughout the year. We should have a route which is be able to connect people throughout 24 by 7. That should be our strategy. So in that case, we made a mistake. That's what I would say.
Shaji, what really happened if there were experts like Mr. Vishnudas and several others from across the country who did warn that this is something that is geologically, hydrologically vulnerable area, ecologically fragile area? Then why did the government choose this particular twin tunnel project in your understanding?
I will tell you one thing. In 2024, when the large scale landslides happened in that region, and one of the landslide happened just 5 kilometers away from the incident site, this time, the Kalladi. And that time, the powerful narration on the part of the government was one of the biggest tasks during the landslide was accessing the nearest best hospital, the Medical College of Super Specialty Hospital in Calicut. And in the case of the affected people, affected community, it took several hours to reach the hospital through the existing main road through the gut sections of the Tamarasheri gut section between Lekudi and Tamarasheri. And government said government is going to construct this tunnel using 2,400 crore rupees. The main objective is to ensure immediate evacuation of these tragedy victims, the landslide victims in the future to the hospital center, Calicut. Our question, if the government spend hardly 200 rupees, 200 crore rupees or 240 crore rupees, and they constructed a multi-specialty hospital in Wayanad, that would be more economical, more useful, and more beneficial to the people in Wayanad. And from 1980 sorry, from 2018, Wayanad has been witnessing extreme annual weather events, landslides, other natural calamities, floods. So the people are dying each year, and most of the people are still living in fear, extreme fear. And the tunnel road is not the solution. Now it itself is turning a big tragedy in the case of the poor ordinary people living in Wayanad. So that is one of the biggest kind of distraction or the impact of the false propaganda by the government. Because the government is saying the tunnel is a solution, but tunnel is practically not a solution because it is opening up a lot of challenges to the people living in Wayanad. And another thing, the government is saying it will push the tourism possibilities of Wayanad. Wayanad is a hill station. It is very close to Mysore, Bangalore, Ooty, and Kannur and Calicut. And for the last several years, people have been visiting Wayanad using whatever the modest facilities. And people are coming to Wayanad not just to experience the latest technology or latest experimental this kind of infrastructure project. People are coming to experience the salubrious climate. People want to enjoy whatever be the beauty of Wayanad, the natural beauty. And one day, Wayanad is turning a land of frequent landslides. And one day, Wayanad is turning a land of calamities. Who will come to Wayanad? And the tunnel roads,
Very
they
important.
themselves, they will not be able to, tunnel roads will not be able to bring in tourists. Once the tourists are reaching Wayanad, they must have to see something good. They have to feel something to be positive. So now the tunnel
Yes,
is turning.
Kerala's green crown used to call the Wayanad, and now if it is becoming infamous for its landslides and these kind of ecological disasters. But when the Madhav Gadgil report came or the Kasturi Rangan report came, we said, it should be declared as an ecologically sensitive area. But the locals did feel, like you mentioned, that livelihood options, tourism or otherwise would open up. And that also seems a real and valid concern, isn't it? That your road to prosperity is through building these kind of roads.
I will tell you one thing very clearly. While comparing with many other reports, Madhav Gadgil report was not totally against tourism. It was not against agriculture. And it was not anti-farmer. The committee involved many farmer leaders or farming experts. And they were telling us what is sustainable tourism, what is sustainable fair agriculture practices, and how the local community would be benefited by engaging in organic kind of cultivation, how they will benefit by through coexistence. So the organized propaganda was that Gadgil was anti-farmer. There was charge, there was organized political parties, and nobody, the interest groups, they were not ready to read the report of Gadgil. Instead, they tried to make Gadgil a villain. That is the price Wayanad is now paying. Because Gadgil always said he stood with farmers. His priority was farmers. He said, even while preferring between environment and farmers, his choice is farmers. In spite of he is telling all these things in detail, the organized propaganda, the organized attempt on the part of Western interests was to discredit Gadgil and Gadgil report. And that time, they were pushing the exaggerated kind of figures related to tourism. And Wayanad is now paying for it. And there is a big issue of human animal conflict. And tourism is one of the contributing factors for the growing human animal conflict in Wayanad. So the Wayanad's problems are multiple and they have no easy solution.
Yeah, yeah. Mr. Vishnudas, finally, if you were to suggest three non-negotiable things that the government should now do to make Wayanad more resilient to these kind of disasters, man-made disasters, as you call them, what would they be?
One thing, we should have a very proper assessment of all these ecological and environmental vulnerability. If you are going for a mega projects or large scale projects, like what we did for a tunnel or whatever thing, we should have done very proper impact assessment studies. And this case, it is not done. And the committee has done 25, 23 recommendations, and nobody has monitored it. Actually, the sanction was that some technical group should monitor some 23 parameters while starting the project. That is not done in this case. So we should have a very thorough studies, and then only you can give clearance into that.
So,
Second thing is,
monitoring authority would be the state government's own body. So, who is the
yeah,
monitoring
yeah, yeah,
authority?
yeah,
Because
yeah. So that is
uh,
how the state environmental impact, the appraisal committee has suggested while giving a permission to this kind of projects at that time. It's very significant observations were there, and many of them are not happened till now. Second thing is, as we looking at Wayanad as a district, Wayanad's life and livelihood is basically depending on agriculture. You know that 95% of the total coffee production comes from Wayanad districts of the state of Kerala, and the spices like black pepper, rice, banana, and you can see hardly any investment going into these areas. Instead, the propaganda is like, okay, tourism will contribute a major portion of the livelihood and income. So there's a different narrative altogether. But farmers are almost 80-85% of the total population is still depending on agriculture for their livelihood. And Wayanad is a good climatic condition that attracts a lot of spices to grow. So farmers are producing a lot, and total coffee production is very, very important. Now, coffee also support the agro ecosystem, microclimatic conditions in the district. So these are the things that we have forgotten. All these discussions of single project focused dialogues and development narratives. Instead, I would say we should focus really into the issues of the people of Wayanad. We should really give more important agriculture sector, health sector, and to give a priority for health infrastructure so that people of Wayanad need not go to other districts for any kind of health emergency. That can be done very easily, compared to the cost that Mr. Shaji has been mentioning. One tenth of the cost is sufficient for giving proper health infrastructure. And the connectivity side, we can different models are available in the state. How best we can do an ecologically sensitive area, and we should always think that we should not go for the same kind of development approach for the entire state, because Wayanad is a hilly district. Hilly district has its own features. Just like a mountainous hilly district, it has its own geological, ecological, cultural features. So we should value that and to come up with a development plan for those kind of areas. So our strategy is like keeping a blanket development program for the entire state and putting onto the people of across the state is not a right approach at this point of time where we face extreme climate crisis. For example, the major impact of climate crisis and the extreme weather and landslides, everything happened in the small districts in the last 5 6 years. And each time we are losing thousands of crores of rupees. For example, in 2024 Mundakai incident, the government is spending hundreds of crore rupees for the rehabilitation. How many people are to be rehabilitated? Are we able to continue this kind of rehabilitation projects in future? How much money we have to raise? So the investment should be onto building resilience at local level, also to have a very good early warning system in place, looking at weather monitoring system, advance information to farming communities of weather calamities and those kind of things, and to make a very sustainable way of lifestyle and thinking in a mountainous district. That should be the way forward for a region like Wayanad. And Wayanad should have a separate hill development council or something like that, that should have expertise in ecology, geology, environmental, meteorological science, and cultural background. All these people come together and make a plan for a hilly district like Wayanad and Idukki in Kerala. The rest of Kerala is actually drained to the, it's like a coastal region where the Western Ghats to coastal region has a different topography altogether. So we should go for those kind of development in future, and that is the way forward, I think. Thank you.
Very, very significant suggestions. Mr. Shaji, just final word to you. Wayanad resilience plan is what Vishnudas is mentioning. Politically, is it possible for the present government to actually take an entire relook? Because, like you mentioned, this is more than 2,000 crore project, and the vulnerabilities are very, very clear. It seems to be a recurring phenomenon at that. Is it possible politically for them to take those kind of steps now?
The present chief minister was the leader of opposition in the last 5 years, and in the last 5 years he was echoing whatever we shared here. And we have high hopes in him. And even today he said the government is ready to conduct a thorough probe. It is not a political kind of investigation. It would be the gathering of the whatever the original faults committed by the authorities over the years. The thing is that the whatever be the development, whatever be the infrastructural growth, it just must be area specific and region specific. No common solution for the whole state. And while implementing such projects, first they have to take into confidence the local communities, the vulnerable groups like tribals and also the ecological activists, environmental activists, the local level experts. Because in the case of Wayanad, there are many people who are working at the ground level without listening to them, without hearing them. And some officials or experts, so-called experts, they are sitting in Trivandrum or somewhere else, and they are deciding, and they are saying, this is the future for Wayanad, this is the solution for Wayanad. That is not acceptable. So, the demand must arise from the community. It must be validated at the local and regional level. And the adversities must be properly assessed. And the people must be convinced what must be ideal and what must not be ideal. So that kind of discussion, a democratic kind of engagement with the local communities, the local people, that is very necessary. And nothing can be enforced on the people. That is the biggest thing. Because it is a top-down approach on the part of the government. Because the government or the interest groups are deciding this is ideal for Wayanad, this is good for Wayanad. That is not acceptable. It is not the case of Wayanad, same as the case of Idukki other vulnerable districts of Kerala, other hill parts of Kerala, and also the coastal region of Kerala. The local communities, they are socially, economically, traditionally, they are very weak. They are living in the margins. And these people may not be having the same kind of enlightenment of the people well educated or powerful people in the Midlands, or those people, the lucky people living in the cities. So the people on these vulnerable areas must be taken into confidence. Their anxieties, their issues, their realities must be addressed. Then only we can think about large scale infrastructure.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shaji and Mr. Vishnudas, giving us perspective and also hopefully direction to the state on not having a top-down approach, but having something that is inclusive in the conservation efforts and the prosperity of Wayanad. Thank you so much for joining us on DeKoder.